There's no longer a debate in Uganda. We don't recognize homosexuality as a human right here.
We were very scared that the Reagan administration was going to put people with AIDS in internment camps. And I think that we came close to that in this country.
People with disability want connection, intimacy and touch. What am I going to do with you tonight?
Queercore started, as I like to say, in my apartment on Queen Street, in my living room, where everyone would come and hang out.
Ahora han venido muchas chicas nuevas, ¿verdad? Y pues obviamente todas son inmigrantes. Entonces quizás por lo que les ha tocado vivir en sus vidas, ahí en sus países, yo pienso que quizás por eso vienen así con esa violencia, con esa forma.
Hi there, I'm Nick Casamia. I'm here with Lynn Crocker, who is a programmer, international programmer, here with Hot Dogs in Toronto. Does Hot Dogs seek out for things that sort of provoke the mind, but also challenge the norms of sexuality and the parameters of traditional lifestyle?
Certainly, I think that we're looking for both a diversity in subject matter and a diversity in the way that stories are told. So with a lot of the films this year that are dealing with queer topics or queer positive subject matters, we're seeing a lot of creativity in the way that these stories are being told.
We wanted to get a sneak peek into some of the highlights of this year's film festival.
Sure.
So, list away. What do you recommend?
To start off, a great film that came out of Toronto this year is She Said Boom, the story of Fifth Column. Fifth Column was an experimental, all-female post-punk band that came out of Toronto in the 80s. And I think they were really doing something with their sound and their style that was incredibly different from anything else that you saw. So they were really influential in the Riot Grrrl movement, and they were influential with starting the queercore movement with some of Toronto's greatest artists like Bruce LaBruce. I think it's a great time capsule of Toronto in that time.
So, you know, punk has its gay origins, and we were trying to put the gay back in punk.
On the international scene, what do you recommend?
Call Me Kuchu is a really incredible film. Kuchu is a synonym in Uganda for queer, and it's about a gay rights activist named David Kato who was fighting in 2010 against an anti-homophobia bill that was proposed in Uganda. And he was also fighting against all of the newspapers who were trying tirelessly to out homosexuals, which made it incredibly dangerous for them to be out on the streets. So they were being beaten up and threatened to be hanged.
The first outing which came up in the papers was 2007, where we had this list of the top homosexual men in Kampala. They mentioned the location where I live. Actually, I remember I cried, yeah.
There's another kind of film from Australia which is about sex work.
Yes.
Which is very sex positive, and it's actually a very sweet film.
I do not have a girlfriend, so I...
Yes, Scarlet Road is a film about a sex worker in Australia who specializes in clients that are differently abled.
I like the fact that my job always entails pleasure, making someone feel better about themselves. They deserve to smile.
And I think it's also very timely here in Toronto because there's been the recent legislation here in Ontario to decriminalize sex work. So I think this is a very timely and important film.
One of the docs that I'm curious in checking out is the Act Up documentary.
Yes, United in Anger. This film has some never-before-seen footage from the front lines of the beginning, the first protests that ACT UP engaged in. So we get to see firsthand really the spirit behind this movement, from the very first meetings in the community center to the very first protests that affected some of the greatest changes in healthcare in America.
How deeply are Americans worried about AIDS? A Los Angeles Times poll found that 50% of Americans favor quarantine for AIDS victims. 15% said AIDS victims should be tattooed.
It was about people in power not caring about the lives of people who didn't have power.
I think Wildness is my pick for the year. It's about a little gay bar in MacArthur Park in Los Angeles called the Silver Platter. And this, since 1963, has been sort of a playground and a safe space for the Latino transgendered community. But in 2006, an artist collective came in there and started throwing a monthly party called Wildness, which brought a whole new generation of queers through the door.
Mi nombre es Karen, soy de México, de parte de Veracruz. Tengo 20 años, me siento tan orgullosa de ser transexual.
I love Hot Dogs, so this is very exciting, and it's an opportunity to see films that you would not see otherwise. Also, thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming.